Enrico Beraldi from Uppsala University to talk us through the design of an impactful Milestone Prize. Thank you, Enrico.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be invited here to present this type of incentive. We can go to the next slide. And I will take you through what a Milestone Prize is basically in terms of mechanism, but also pointing out at why we need this type of reward, also how it can be designed. But I will highlight also the challenges, how these challenges can be overcome, and finally, how complementary a milestone-based prize can be in relation to other pool incentives, because I want to stress it. The milestone-based prize does not exclude the importance of other pool entry market pool mechanisms. Next slide, please. So you know all about the problems of lack of profitability, and the idea is that with pool rewards, we can improve this situation. Next slide. And it's about really avoiding a withdrawal decision at the various steps in the antibiotic development pipeline. Next slide, please. And you can do it by pulling a yes decision at the various moments there. However, earlier pool can make a decision with much smaller amounts. Next slide, please. So basically, a milestone prize is about paying for success, actually. Success upon completion of a specific step, okay? So it's different from a push, a grant, which pays for anything, but however, it's complementary both to the push and to the pull that we'll talk about later, okay? However, it's also a matter of covering the cost of the phase that has been successfully completed, but adding also some kind of revenue. A revenue that can be used to be performing also the next step. And that's something that also Big Pharma is quite used to do in the setting of biotech. Next slide, please. So why do we need specifically this type of solution for the antibiotic R&D landscape? Something that has not been discussed openly is that if you want to have a really effective pool mechanism, lump sum paid, it has to be huge, $4 billion. I don't know if we're really willing to pay for that, right? So we need to have something that can help fill in the pipeline early on in early stages so that you will have something eventually to pull, okay? In that sense, it becomes complementary, the milestone reward. Moreover, we also get another interesting effect. By having many developers compete for the prize, let's say at phase 1, actually, even those who will not get the prize will have completed something and have projects more attractive. Next slide, please. Graphically, you can see here, let's say 6, 7 projects starting phase 1 just because they hope to get the prize. Well, some will fail, of course. 1 will get the prize, the green one, but 2 will have done it and will be more attractive. Next slide, please. Then there are other reasons why we need it. SMEs, they really need cash. There is no cash available for them. They are likely to die without cash. And the way we propose to design this prize, we provide them cash in a way that even their valuation towards potential investors will increase, also towards the venture capitalists that are probably funding them. Then there is also a matter of having something in between the current situation where we don't have anything and the moment when there will be a real pool. It's possible to start with milestone prices already now. They can be instituted quite quickly and paid rather soon. If you look at projects in preclinical, actually, we could pay them already in 3-4 years. Whereas if you look at an entry market reward, then we will have to wait for 10 more years. Next slide, please. So how can they be designed? Well, first of all, we look at phase 1 or 2. And of course, we need to have very demanding conditions in terms of the molecules that we will incentivize. Indeed, they have to be druggable molecules. They need to have already at that early stage a target product profile. And they need to be highly innovative. I don't want to enter into the details. Then we need to provide specific requirements on the awardees that will continue also after receiving the award to the next phase, or they will have to release the IPs to another willing developer. In terms of size, we've done a lot of analysis in a report commissioned by HERA, And the idea is to start from the cost of R&D, phase one, for instance, and then add a multiplier to identify a profit percentage, 50%, 100%, 200%. So you end up with that type of size. However, we have made interviews with SMEs for a previous project, and we know that they can be interested also for much lower amounts. Next slide, please. There are clearly challenges to milestone prizes. First of all, the well-known information asymmetry problem that causes a risk of gaming. The developer is the one who really knows what's good and bad with the project, so they can hide negative aspects. Well, I will show you a potential way to address this problem. Then, of course, there is a problem that, of course, you can succeed after phase one, but then it's a long way to approval. So, yeah, even if it gets better, if you pay a phase two reward, then it's still not a finished product. The way to counter it is to pay more than one milestone prize, potentially 3, maybe 4 for phase one completion, 2 to 3 for phase 3 completion. Another problem is that big pharma is not interested. Why not? Well, of course, they are the ones that usually pay the milestone prizes, so they're not at all interested in this. And then another problem is that SMEs who eventually get the reward after completing phase one would still need a lot of support. We have invested in them. We can't just let them go and lose this potential important public investment. Let's move to the next slide. How can we overcome the challenges? Well, first of all, let's look at the landscape out there. We have already out there in operation coordinators, pipeline coordinators, and the idea is that these milestone-based rewards would be managed, administered by these organizations that are capable to select the best projects after having them under their control, or anyway by requiring total open disclosure of information about their projects. In that sense, the projects that receive this award would enter the portfolio of this type of organizations, for instance, CARBAX, which is already out there, partly supported already by EU. And this type of organization would monitor continuously the continued performance of R&D by the awardees. Okay? Or if the awardees do not want to continue, they would be able to find through the network some other interested developer. These pipeline coordinators or similar organization would also be the ones that really support the SME to continue during the development. Okay? And if we consider the existence of this structure with pipeline coordinators and similar organizations out there, then it's probably going to be easier and faster to set up a system of milestone prizes. Next slide. What about the other pool mechanisms? Well, we heard about some of them. They're all market entry, late pool mechanisms, revenue guarantees. For instance, we propose with the Drive AB something in that order. Subscription models, fantastic by the UK. We heard about it. We heard about the TEV, of course. It's formally a lump sum payment. We have also mixtures like big payment and then declining. But bottom line, the big problem is that you need very large market entry pool. And the problem is that maybe we're not willing to go to that level. Phase one reward can help reduce the size of this huge market entry reward. So it's complementary. Combining big pool at the end with milestone rewards can help reduce the size of this big pool at the end. Last slide, please. So concluding, we need milestone prizes to complement both pool and push. It's a surgical way to strengthen specific projects early in the pipeline, not waiting just at the end. Different from grants, I repeat it, because you pay for success here, and you can reduce public investment at the end. Moreover, this can work in the context of the support structure, for instance, including pipeline coordinators. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Enrico. I go up next on the milestone prizes. Normally, I'm more speaking around the TEVs, and today I was asked about commenting a bit on the milestone price from the view of SMEs, for instance. I think I start out with a comment to the comment from Tara beforehand on the TEV doesn't solve all the problems around access and manufacturing, etc. And I think that is true, but that's also why we discuss mostly a basket of solutions on the European context, because also the TEV doesn't solve the fair share contribution of EU. And milestone prices could be a valuable addition to this basket to see how they function actually in the context of this whole basket of reimbursing and reinvigorating antibiotic innovation. I think on the next slide, please. First is the question, what really are milestone prices? Enrico clearly defined them as paying for success and as a pull mechanism. I want us to understand, is it really true? And also, what are we then paying for? If we look at the European fair share, we understand that this is around 1.3 billion, roughly, that Europe would need to contribute. That also means that milestone prices coming from the European Union would need to go to innovators all over the world. Cannot be restricted only to European countries because it's part of the fair share of a new antibiotic. I think that was one problem that certainly needs to be solved. The criteria of selection are a big and important problem that we need to select carefully, because in the end we need to create a system, if milestone prices are part of it, that reinvigorates the contribution of the private sector to AMR innovation on the long run. And that comes then, I think, here to the next slide, where we see also analogous to what Enrico has shown, the development cycle of a new drug. And here we understand that milestone prices start kicking in somewhere in clinical stage, maybe phase 1, maybe phase 2. That usually takes a minimum of 5 to 8 years for a project that starts early to reach that time. And then it's a minimum of 15 to 25 million per project that has been invested at that point. And I think we are very much aligned with the numbers that Enrico also showed. We come to about, after phase 1, for instance, 40 to 60 million that needs to be paid as a milestone price. Now, what regulators and people that put that in place need to understand that those 40 to 60 million now are probably 100% going to be paid back to investors, because you cannot deploy that money going forward. Then you missed that. Then it's a push incentive and not a pull. And are we ready to deploy that kind of money and pay back the private sector at the stage where we do certainly pay a lot for failure as well? And I think the eligibility criteria and also linking it to other existing organizations is good. But the more, and that's the same with any incentive, the more we restrict the criteria, the less we actually foster innovation. Great innovation, totally new concepts in phase 1 will tell you very little. This is unfortunately the matter of fact. So if you restrict too much, you will restrict what comes through the pipeline immensely. And I think that's a very important consideration also to take. And then on the next slide, I think trying to summarize this is the question, what are we really paying for? Aren't we paying with milestone prices for a lot of failure, while it would be, in our view, easier to have a larger, at the very end, market entry reward combined with transferable exclusivity, for instance, because there you are sure that you really pay much more for the success. A phase 1 is around safety. A phase 2 is linking the first safety signals with efficacy, but we're still far from really understanding the product. We heard already that there is also a risk, even after market approval, full approval, that products could still fail on actually solving the real issues. What we don't see in early clinical stage development is often the cost of goods, the ease of use, how is it working in real clinical setting with comorbidities. We often talk a lot of theory here, but we have to please look at who we are developing these drugs for. It's patients in the hospital, mostly, that have a lot of other diseases as well and are for reasons in the hospital. And all of this comes in later clinical stage development. So milestone prices, in our view, pay for a lot of things and a lot of failure as well. And the question is, are we accepting that? And isn't it in the end more expensive compared to an appropriate size pull mechanism at the end where we only pay for the approved products?
Great, thank you, Mark. We'll open up for questions now. I mean, clearly there is this tension, isn't it, of needing to support our development, but at the same time make sure that there is onward development and onward support, even if a company is awarded a milestone prize. So that's clearly quite a tricky tension to manage. Have you got any questions? Enrico would like to jump in.
Am I allowed to reply to Mark's great question? Absolutely. Totally relevant. Let me start from one of your questions concerning the private investors in an SME receiving payback already after phase one completion. Well, I do not know about your investors, but it depends certainly from SME to SME. But to my understanding, if you increase the value of an asset that you are invested in, unlikely you require any immediate return. Typically, you have IPO as a goal. There are not many venture capitalists that want to have return within 3 years. I repeat, it depends greatly. So I don't want to take it as the game stopper for this type of incentive.
Agreed. There's multiple ways to come to Rome in that sense. But when you put a milestone price in place, you have to understand we are always competing as any SME developing drugs. We're competing with all the other medical sectors. And in a lot of the medical sectors, if early stage investors go in at, let's say, university stage, startup of a new idea and so forth, 5 to 8 years is already a pretty long time horizon. Most funds have a time horizon of 10 years. You come to that point, and in other therapeutic areas, companies are normally taken out by M&A, potentially an IPO, or licensing at these stages. That doesn't happen in AMR because of the commercial viability of the products. So this is a natural time frame where investors would expect some return on invest possibility, and a milestone prize would need to respect that. Otherwise, we are not competing against or bringing back innovation and private capital into our sector because we are competing against the other therapeutic areas.
Is it okay with a rebate on this? But would you think that a milestone reward would reduce your attractiveness compared to other therapeutic area in the same moment of decision? Because your investors would need still to wait 10 years or 8 years to market entry, and with the uncertainties that still are going to accompany your project until there.
No, I think the milestone prize needs to compete with the other therapeutic areas in the market. So if the milestone prize says we pay for a success that the company went successfully past the phase one, then the price comes to the company and needs to pay out something to the investor. And that's what I said. And I think you said it as well. It's about the 2 to 3-fold what the investors have put in. But that money needs to be then really transferred to the investor as a return.
Okay.
That's my
then I
point.
understand. Unfortunately, here there is a caveat, and that money needs to be used to support the next R&D phase. Okay, but then I have to talk with your investors. We need to have an open discussion with them, because this is really bringing resources for SMEs to continue.
We have Henry still on the call. He is an investor. Maybe he can comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
Henry, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, no, happy to. So, if this is a milestone, which effectively is non-dilutive financing for the next step, just recognizing the earlier, it certainly doesn't provide an exit. It could provide a partial solution to the necessary funding to continue to advance. And the investors thereby would need to raise less money, or the company would raise less money from investors, more from the state. So the state is becoming an investor and taking the risk and effectively subsidizing the other investment that would need to take place. And the state then takes the risk along with the investors going forward, reducing the total amount of return the investors need to receive. According to the way you would approach it, there's no immediate exit. So the investors still have to wait until that ultimate exit, as they typically do in other sectors of healthcare through an M&A, IPO, as companies reach the market and the like. So it could be, there are some positive aspects. I think what it doesn't do that investors do is bring the knowledge investors bring on how to build a company, how to drive management, how to make strategic decisions. But it does reduce the amount of capital the investors need to bring to the table.
But then to the opening slide of my presentation, in our view, it's a push mechanism and not a pull, because it's, again, you call it milestone price, but it is something that actually, like a grant, reduces the further development cost. And by my definition, it will be a push mechanism.
I'm a theoretician. We can have a discussion about it afterwards. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions in the room or online? Doesn't